I didn't think about it. And now I have to stink about it. Okay. Hello. And welcome. It's not coronavirus. Probably. So, as you may have guessed, I stayed home sick from work today. And you know what that means. Diarrhea. Making drawing videos. That's... God. I'm okay. Or am I? Tune in to my channel to see if I am okay or I'm already dead. It wasn't this bad until I hit record. I like it. I need candy. I have water right behind me. How's this for good content? Just watch a colorblind artist drink water. How does he know it's water? It says it on the label. That's how I know. Always thinking. So today I wanted to do an old drawing that I started to ink, never really finished, and I thought I'd cough my lungs out for you. Today I wanted to finish up that drawing, but I wanted to do it with something I'm still a little bit nervous about using these tools. These are alcohol markers. I use Ohuhu. I also have some Winsor Newton markers. I like those. I just have more of a color variety here. You know what? I'm just going to edit out as many coughs as I can and keep the funny ones. So if I jump around a lot, just assume that I coughed myself inside out. So I've got some old drawings in here that I never finished, and I'll choose whichever one it is I want to do today. I want to talk to you a little bit about these markers. I really enjoyed this trick that I saw of color swatching. Not only will it tell you if the color on the marker is actually accurate to how it's represented on the paper, it never is. You know, what color swatching is, you just basically take the name or number. In this case, it's just number. It's a little bit random how they do their color numbering. But you take the number, you make a square for it, and then you start marking what the color looks like on white paper. I'll stop coughing one of these days, and man, is that going to be sweet. Let's pick a drawing. We'll get to work on it, and we'll see how it turns out. Thanks for joining me, and let's get to work. Today we are working on a Batwoman drawing I started about 3 years ago. This is the same sketchbook I worked on my first video. It's full of a bunch of drawings that I started, I never really finished, or maybe I did some inks on them. This one is one of my favorite drawings that was in here, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about fear today. I am terrified
every time I get to the color portion of one of my pieces. Not just because, yeah, I'm partially colorblind, but because sometimes I'm using tools I'm not super comfortable with, but I know they have potential. So markers are probably the scariest medium I have right now. They are very permanent. So with watercolor, you can mop it up a little bit, right? Like you put down some dark blue or red or something a little dark there. You put enough water on that paper, you can mop it up, and it might tinge the paper, it might weaken it a little bit, and if you're not careful, it'll start to uh, peel the paper or pill the paper. I've never been clear on what the term is, but basically little pieces of paper will start to peel up, and that might happen, if you make a mistake in watercolor. But it's pretty easy to go over that. Uh, you might have some problems at first, but eventually you get used to it. With a marker, you put a black mark anywhere, that's gonna stay there for the rest of your life, or at least the life of the painting or drawing. It's gonna stay there forever, and that's part of what's so scary about markers is that you need to be very careful with them. And I make a few mistakes here and there, but I'm able to cover them up with surrounding colors or whatever. I'm not very good at staying within the lines. I'm always afraid of making a mistake and kind of ruining a drawing, and especially something like this where I kind of liked the line work I had done. I didn't put a whole lot of depth into it. As you can see, it's mostly just plain outlines of things, because I had always kind of assumed, well, I'll go back into it with watercolor, and that's where I'll define my forms and start to push and pull foreground and background and midground. With markers, it is kind of nice that it's a little easier to start getting saturated color right away. With watercolor, you have to kind of put layer and layer. With marker, it's a lot easier. As you can see, I don't have to go over a lot of times to get kind of dark pretty fast. I love the color design of this character, the way the red pops against the black. If you've ever read the series she had back in like 2011, I think it was, you've seen the amazing drawings and amazing colors. There was a lot of really nice ink work done in those stories, and I saw them, and I just absolutely fell in love with the way that character felt, the way it looked. It just looked really cool, really moody. The sky was kind of a challenge. I wasn't really sure how to approach the glow of the buildings while still kind of representing a very dark sky in the background. And it's going to look a little fuzzy, it's going to look a little bit weird. It does get a little bit better towards the end. What I did was I took a picture of it and I sent it to my girlfriend, and she was like, yeah, it looks alright, but you need to keep working on that sky. She kind of gave me some ideas to kind of fuzz the lines a little bit more and introduce some more highlights in the sky, which is kind of the problem I was talking about. Like, once you make a dark line that's kind of there, you can do something similar to what you can do with watercolor, which is if you put down a dark color, you can kind of lighten it up a little bit, or at least make like some small highlights on it with a blender marker. A blender marker is really just a marker filled with pure rubbing alcohol, basically. But it will lift a little bit of that color off, and that's kind of what I have to do later on. The buildings were a little bit tricky because I had to pick things that felt bright. Color variation is a little bit weird for me because a lot of colors just kind of look the same. That was a little tricky too. I also had to make sure that, and that's where the color swatching is actually coming in handy. The color swatching is kind of my guide to what colors I should be using. That's why I keep them around. If you have a wide selection of markers and you're not sure how they're going to come out on paper, not even just markers, but like watercolors, if you have a brand that you're not that familiar with of any kind of medium, I would highly suggest making swatching papers. So let me talk a little bit about these particular markers. They are relatively inexpensive. I would say they're probably the cheapest markers for this quality that you can find. I am not sponsored by Ohuhu, but if they would like to, that's totally cool. They're going to run you about less than $1 a marker, which is not bad for markers. Markers are very expensive considering you only get one color per marker. Like with watercolor tubes, you get any variation you want if you mix it with something else, and you can dilute it, you can do whatever you want with it. With markers, it's a little harder. You kind of just gotta go for it. With these Ohuhu markers, I would recommend them if you're on a budget and you want something just to kind of start off with. They are really good quality. The only thing I would say is if you're not used to chisel tip, and if you don't know what a chisel tip is, if you've ever used like a highlighter or like jumbo Sharpie or something, that's what a chisel tip is. So if you're not used to that, I would look for something with a brush tip. And now they do offer brush tips, but they are not as many markers in a set. That's the other downside to, I would say, to Ohuhu. They only come in sets of like 20, 30s and 40s. They don't sell them individually. With Copics, which are like the top tier markers, you can get them individually. They're just like $8 a piece. If you get them on sale, they're like $6 a piece. So there's some give and take there. I would recommend getting cheap stuff first if you're barely getting into it. There are really cool things you can do with markers, and I highly recommend them. Color swatching, like I said, it's a great tool. Especially if you're colorblind like me, it kind of helps me out. I can always hold it to like different light to make sure that I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. I can kind of use it to figure out what colors are nearby it to give me an idea, to make sure I'm seeing what I'm seeing. Like if something looks kind of green, but I hold it up to the light and I look at the colors around it, those other colors are kind of yellow. I'm like, oh, it's probably a yellow, maybe a yellow green. And that kind of gives me some insight to what I've got in my hand. All right, so that is Batwoman. I like these markers. Next time I use markers, I'll probably use my Winsor Newtons, which they're a little more expensive. They're probably like $2, $3 a piece. But those have brush nibs, which are way nicer to get blending done with. So yeah, that'll be it for me, guys. Let's get back to the studio.
Ow. Yes, that does hurt. Okay, so all done. Turned out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know how well it'll show up on this camera, but so what I'll do is I'll scan it in and I'll upload it and use that as the thumbnail. If you ever want to see any finished products that I do on this channel, I load them all to my Facebook page, Jazz Noir Studios on Facebook. So check me out. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I think it turned out really well. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked the painting, markering. I don't know what to call this. I hope you enjoyed the art. And please like, leave a comment, share with your friends. Thank you for watching. And yeah, I guess I will see you guys in the next video. Until that day, good luck and Godspeed. I didn't cough. Nice. this stuff back. I mean, sometimes it's just like, you know what I mean? Sometimes, man, you just got, and then you, before you know it, you're already like, and then it's like, you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy, but I like it. I really shouldn't have gone through so much trouble closing it, because I'm just gonna open it again. Cut.